Hi everyone, Paul here from familywheels.ca with another car review for your growing family. And if you're a fan of the channel, you'll know that we are a Volvo family. We've got an XC60 of our own and we absolutely love it as our daily driver. So it should be no surprise that when the XC90 came out back in 2015, we loved that vehicle as well. But this company isn't one to really rush into things. They take their time with their redesigns. It took 12 years to see a new XC90 relaunched. And similarly, it's taken 9 years for us to see a new version of the XC60. And here we have it for 2018 in its second generation. Now this is a very important vehicle for Volvo because it's a real volume seller for them here in North America, and it also sandwiches in terms of size very nicely between the larger 7-passenger XC90 and the much smaller soon-to-be-released XC40. If you're a family who wants a little bit of extra room but nothing too gargantuan, it's a nice option to look at, which is why this segment has become so popular. We're talking here about luxury SUVs, kind of on the smaller side. Think of the BMW X3, the Audi Q5, the Lexus NX, the Mercedes GLC. This thing has some stiff competition, and I've had a lot of requests from you to get on board the new XC60 and see how it compares. So here we are on Vancouver Island this week, spending some time on my original home turf, and the folks from Jim Pattison Volvo of Victoria were good enough to set us up in this tester. So let's see what tricks the new XC60 has up its sleeve right here on Family Wheels. Well, I gotta say, I am a sucker for this latest generation of Volvo vehicle design. I just think it looks so good. With those incredible Hammer of Thor LED headlights, that slight bulge in the long athletic hood. Its back end is very crisp, very clean. You're getting a pretty well-rounded bit of kit too. In Canada, all trims come standard with a power lift tailgate and all-wheel drive. That separates it from base models in the States. You also get leather, heated front seats, driver's seat memory, dual zone climate control, a huge tablet-style 9-inch infotainment system screen with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and a big old panorama sunroof to round out your standard equipment. It's also ridiculously safe as standard with lane keep assist technology coming on all trims, automatic braking and pedestrian detection at slow urban speeds. It has oncoming lane mitigation where the car will steer you out of trouble if it senses another oncoming car drifting toward you, and rear collision warning. If another driver is careening toward your back end, the taillights are going to flash, the seatbelts in this car are going to tighten. Pretty slick stuff to have on every XC60. And then if you really want to up your safety game, there's a bunch of other optional safety features as well, like blind spot monitoring, backup sensors, rear cross traffic alert for when you're backing out of a parking stall, and a 360-degree parking camera that really does put pretty much every other parking camera on the market to shame. It is so clear. No matter what trim you get though, the new XC60 does have a top safety pick rating from the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety. Just missing out on the plus rating from that organization because of the IIHS's new nighttime headlight tests that they're doing. The XC60's headlights came out a little bit weak in those tests, but I actually think they're still perfectly fine for nighttime driving. LED headlights, by the way, now come standard on all trims of this vehicle for 2018. But let's break down those various trims on this car and figure out what's going to be right for you. First up, the powertrains. There's the T5 engine that puts out 250 horsepower from a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. It's the most affordable choice for sure, but it's the T6 that the staff at Jim Pattison Volvo of Victoria say is the big volume seller for them. That's what we're driving around here this week. It's the same engine as the T5, but it has a supercharger and a turbocharger slapped on it, and that cranks up horsepower to a zippy 316 of them. But if you want to be a bit of an early adopter for where this company is heading, there's the T8, which is a plug-in hybrid option here in the XC60. Volvo dropped a bit of a bombshell this past summer when they announced that by 2019, they're planning on no longer designing combustion-only engine vehicles. So in the not-so-distant future, it would be powertrains like we see in the T8 or bust from Volvo. And while we're not testing the T8 here this week, the reports are that it's still an auxiliary exhilarating car to drive with 400 horsepower whipping you around town, while also offering the best fuel economy out of these three powertrains. It also has nearly 30 kilometers of strictly plug-in electric range for those quick trips around the city, dropping kids off at school, going to the grocery store. But unless your province or state has an attractive electric vehicle incentive program at over $14,000 Canadian more than a similarly equipped T6, it may be too much of a price jump for you. But then we get to the trims, and this is where we look at all the luxurious features. There's the basic Momentum package, which gives you all of those features that I was just rattling off a moment ago. You can up the sportiness by going to the R-Design trim with bigger rims, a sportier grille, nubuck inserts in the seats, which look really cool but would be a doozy to keep clean with kids in the back. You also get a digital instrument cluster in front of the driver and some flashy metal inlays around the interior, as well as a pair of paddle shifters on the steering wheel. And if you're the kind of person who wants every one of the bells and whistles, well, there's the Inscription package, and that's what we're driving around in here this week. With 20-inch wheels, Napa leather seats, ventilated front seats, heated rear seats, these driftwood inlays, it looks really slick in here. But if you go whole hog on the XC60 with the Inscription package, with the T8 powertrain, you're looking at over $25,000 more than the base price on this vehicle, which is why my inner cheap Ukrainian would probably wind up going with the more basic version of this car. The Momentum package, the T5 power plant, you're getting a nice balance there between sportiness, efficiency, and some really good standard equipment. No matter what trim you choose though, all powertrains are mated up to an 8-speed automatic transmission. It's smooth, it's quiet, and it really adds to just the general luxurious feel here in this cabin. I've heard of a lot of others complain about the steering here in the XC60, calling it a little bit light, and I would agree, but deep in the settings there are ways to adjust the steering and make it a little bit heavier, a little bit sportier, so I don't think that that's much of a problem to worry about. The suspension, meanwhile, tuned more for cruising than sharp, responsive cornering feel. I think that the Audi Q5 feels a little bit sportier in the corners, but this is such a comfortable car to cruise around in that it seems like a really reasonable trade-off. And don't get me wrong, I mean, this T6 is still sporty, it's no slouch. I've never felt it lacking for power, yet despite these windy, hilly country roads that I grew up driving on here, I'm still averaging 10.4 liters per 100 kilometers, which is right in the middle of Volvo's projected economy. But if efficiency is high on your list, you will see better numbers in the T8 plug-in hybrid or the T5, which is about 10% more efficient. Now, one thing I really like about the XC60 is that no matter which powertrain you choose, you're getting the same towing capacity, nearly 3,500 pounds, which is actually really respectable. That gives you a modestly sized boat or trailer without having to drive around a big boat of an SUV when you're just, going around the city. And if you are thinking of going off on a great big road trip with your family and your camping trailer, you'll never want to get out of this interior. It is ready to go road tripping. Despite Volvo's new Chinese ownership, the XC60 is still made in Sweden or Belgium, and that Scandinavian design and build quality really shines through. The interior is well finished. I love the open pore driftwood inlay here in our tester, and while it's almost become a cliche to bring this up, Volvo is known for its seats, and the XC60 is no different. They're superb. Not too firm like we see in some European brands, not too soft like we see from some of the domestics. They hold you when you're going through the corners, yet you could be in these seats all day long on a great big road trip. These seats are incredible. Meanwhile, there's this huge tablet-style infotainment system screen. It leads the class in clarity and ease of use, but I would prefer an old-school dial for controlling things like climate control. Sometimes a good old-fashioned knob is just the best thing. Nice to see that there is a dial for the volume though, and once you do turn down the stereo, this is one quiet cabin. 60 decibels at 100 kilometers an hour with our decibel reader test. So in all, a very pleasant cabin to spend time in. But if you've got a family, I would stay far away from this blonde leather interior that we have in our tester. I shudder to think about the plethora of ways that Roger would quickly go about annihilating this spacious interior if he was with me on this road trip this week. But while we're on the topic of families, the XC60 has gotten just a little bit bigger for 2018. That means slightly more headroom in both the front and rear, and over 1.5 inches more second row legroom, which might not sound like much, but makes a big difference. I can sit back there as a 6'2" adult with plenty of legroom and headroom to spare, and our rear-facing car seat test really puts that into perspective. From the back of the front passenger seat cushion up to the glove box, we're measuring 30 inches when we got a rear-facing car seat in place. That is oodles of room and far more than I would have expected in a vehicle in this class. But if you still got kids in car seats, this was a bit of a bummer. The second row doors don't swing out quite as wide as I would hope. So helping a kid get in or out of this car could be a little bit awkward for you. And here's something else that's a little bit curious about the new XC60. Despite its slight increase in size, the trunk has actually shrunk. The previous generation had over 100 liters more capacity. We're dropping from 863 liters behind the second row down to 751 liters. But don't worry, that still handily beats out the 550 liters that you're getting in both the Mercedes GLC or the Audi Q5. And that means that you'll have plenty of room for a great big family dog like my parents or your gear, which, by the way, I don't have all this stuff for our standardized trunk test this week, but suffice to say, it's going to give you plenty of room and room to spare here in the trunk of the XC60. And if you really need to expand your cargo, I love the one-touch folding second row. So slick. And we've got a nice even load floor for carrying long bulky items, no strange humps to deal with. Just really clever design features here from Volvo here in the trunk area. Well, the XC60 is back with a vengeance for 2018. The folks at Jim Pattison Volvo of Victoria say that the level of interest since this relaunch has been really high in this car, and why not? With its striking new design, class-leading seats, streamlined interior, amazing infotainment system, top-shelf safety features, and some extra space in the second row and trunk to boot, if you feel like going upscale, this new Scandinavian alternative is worth a good, hard look.